notification. We get 2 live. We get a live, a ready, and then a live. And so it says we're ready. We're going to see when we get the second live. This is a pregame show, and it does say now that we're live, and I'm going to try to load it in on the iPad here just to make sure that everything is copacetic. And try to get it to load in. And the official show starts at 5 o'clock, and you can see what time it is there. Now there's part 5, but I'm not seeing this immediate broadcast yet. Let me reload this. There we go. Get this to load in. And we'll see what kind of audio that we have. Turn up the audio so I can hear it on the iPad. Testing 1, 2. Okay, sounds pretty good. Think we are okay. Let me know in the chat what you guys are hearing on that end. And we will start here. Well, we'll start with the pregame show for sure. And then we'll start the main show at 5 o'clock. And I just got done watching the Apple event. I don't know if any of you all watched it or not. Andrew's in the house, and Andrew might be Skyping in later. If you're going to Skype in later, let me know when, and probably after 5 o'clock, after the official start time of the show. This is the pregame show now. But the Apple event was pretty cool. Pretty cool event. I have the iPhone 10, and I think I'm going to wait 1 more year to buy a new one, because this one's still working great for me, and I don't really use my phone for taking photos, rarely. I mean, I use real cameras generally. But if you use the iPhone as your main camera, I think this new phone that they announced today, the Pro version, is pretty epic. I think it's a big upgrade. So Carlos is in the house. Let's see, what else did they announce? Oh, the new Apple Watch. Let me grab mine real quick. The new Apple Watch. Now this is the Series 1. This is the first version, and this has the Link bracelet on it, which I really like the Link bracelet. It's super comfortable, very easy to take a Link in and out without any tools. It's pretty cool. And as you can see, it's very trim on the wrist, very thin, and comfortable, exceedingly comfortable. Even though it doesn't have any flex, like side to side, it has very little flex, it still in actual use works very well and is very comfortable on wrist. I wore this for almost 2 years on and off on wrist. So they announced a new iPhone, a new Apple Watch, and it is going to be on, it's going to have an on all the time feature, which a lot of people, including myself, have asked for. The only issue that I see, and I will have to see what it's like in real life, is it's kind of dim when it's on all the time. Then when you tilt it up, like when you tilt this one up, it comes on, right? Or when you touch it, it comes on. Then it will go to full brightness, right? So the on all the time feature is not at full brightness. So that could particularly be a problem out in daylight. Like this one out in daylight, you can read it, but it's not that bright. And the newer ones, they did make them brighter. I haven't seen what they're like in daylight. I haven't actually seen one in person in daylight. But one of the first things I did when I got this watch was tested what it's like in daylight. Because, you know, the iPhone itself is, you know, it's much dimmer in the daylight than it is inside. So it's the same thing with these kinds of things. So that's going to be the big question, is what is it really like in real use outside? Inside, it'll probably be fine, the always on feature. So that's, they announced that. And let's see what else. those are the main things. They have that gaming service for $4.99 a month for the whole family. That's a pretty good price if you got a bunch of gamers in the family. That's pretty cool. What else? I can't off the top of my head think of what else, but the main things are the Pro version of the iPhone now has 3 cameras on it. So one's like an ultra wide angle, and then one just like kind of a normal wide angle type thing, and then one that's a slightly telephoto, right? But what's really cool is they did a demo of Filmic Pro, an app for the phone, and which is coming out later this year, which is going to allow you to roll footage on 2 of the cameras at the same time. It didn't say that it would do 3 cameras at the same time. It said 2. It said multi-camera, and they showed him doing 2. So I don't know if you can do 3 cameras or what the limitation is, but they showed him doing 2. And what was really cool about it was they showed him shooting with the forward-facing camera was one of the camera angles that he was shooting, and then the front-facing camera was the other. So this would be ideal, like if you're doing an interview situation where you're interviewing somebody and you got a camera on them and then you got a camera on yourself, that'd be pretty cool. Or if you're like shooting some kind of an event and you want to be kind of like narrating or talking about what it is, you could have your camera angle like a picture-in-picture, you know, up in the upper left-hand corner, and then have the other camera angle be, you know, whatever it is you're shooting. So there's some interesting possibilities for getting creative with that feature. Let me think what else. I think that's the main things from the Apple event. Did any of you all watch the Apple live stream? Let me know in the chat. I'm reloading here just to make sure I've got everything going here. Tim is in the house. He says it sounds great. The audio sounds great. Good. Steve had issues with his last live stream. God bless him. But he's going to get it. He's going to get it worked out, and it's going to work. He's not going to give up. He knows what went wrong, and hopefully he's going to get it done. So let's see here. Cheetown, California's in the house. See if he can call me Chip, then I can call him Cheetown. So there you go. That's how that works. Now let's do a time check here. Let's do an official time check. Let me get the picture-in-picture going. Let's see if we do this. There we go. And let's adjust that just a little bit. All right, so we're going to do a freeze frame here. And we're going to check and see what we got. Bam. Okay. So just a hair slow, which is what it was last show we did. So there you go. That's consistent. And I had it, the iPhone 11 looks solid. The Pro is a big step up, but the battery life looks promising. The Pro is a big money step up. Yeah, but it's always worth it. It's always worth it to spend the extra money. Whoops, let me take this picture off. In my opinion, it's always worth it to spend the extra money and get the flagship phone if you use your phone a lot, because, my gosh, you're already paying like X amount per month for the service, right? So you might as well get the most out of that service that you're paying for, your cellular service, by having the best possible hardware. So I'm a big fan of getting the best possible hardware, even if you keep it for an extra year or two, to spread out the cost a little bit, right? I think it's always worth it to step up and spend a couple $100 extra and get the flagship phone and get the best possible camera and get the best possible everything that you can get. That's one instance where I think it does pay to step up, because you're going to pay the same amount for the monthly service regardless, right, of what phone you have. You can have the worst phone going and you're still going to be paying the same amount for data and for, you know, just your cellular connection in general. Let's see. Rocking an iPhone 7 and a Toyota. I've owned both longer than people with Androids and Volkswagens. There you go. Well, that's the other advantage to buying an iPhone. And I'll tell you, I really think the gap is even greater now. Years ago, I was always telling people, buy the iPhone. Don't even think about buying the Android. And then they'd try to come up with some arguments that made sense to buy the Android. And yeah, it just doesn't make any sense, folks. The iPhone is so superior. It's not even a close call, especially if you're in the Apple ecosystem. If you've got a MacBook Pro, maybe a Mac Pro, maybe an iPad, if you're all in, which I also recommend, I would rather have like 5 different kinds of clap than a Windows computer. So if you're all in, it makes even more sense to have an iPhone. David is in the house. And so, so speaking of idiots and stupid comments out there in the wild, David likes Android. Well, if you ever go to an iPhone, you'll like throw that Android out the window. So it's a one-way valve. Once people go to iPhone, they never come back. Just like Windows also. Once you leave Windows and go to an Apple, you never go back. Do your homework, save up, and get the best hardware you can afford, and you won't have to upgrade every year because you outgrow the phone. All right, we got a hello from Denmark. There you go, and agree about the iPhone. All right. And so anyway, so this guy puts a comment on one of my videos. He says something to the effect of, if Grand Seikos are so great, then why does everybody copy the Rolex? In other words, a lot of Rolex fakes out there. And why do they not do the same thing with Grand Seiko? Well, I mean, this has to go almost to the top of the list of stupid questions, right? I mean, first of all, the obvious answer is if somebody's going to copy something, they certainly want to copy something that is iconic and that everybody knows and that everybody wants to buy, because there's a market for it, right? So I'm going to copy the Rolex because everybody wants to buy that. They don't even know what a Grand Seiko is. The average person on the street has no idea what a Grand Seiko is. All right, so there's virtually no market for it, right? That's probably the main reason why they don't fake them. The second reason is it would be much harder to fake this watch because, first of all, they don't know how to build the spring drive. It's not that easy to do, and it's not that easy to copy. And so that's a big problem, is even trying to make the spring drive in the first place. Second of all, there's a lot of handwork in this watch by skilled watchmakers. A lot of handwork. That would be expensive and hard to do in a clone, okay? So if they tried to make a clone of this, it would probably be obvious that it was a clone, and it would, again, nobody would want it anyway. And so yeah, that question has to go pretty high up on the list on the ranking of stupid questions. So there you go. Let's see. Craig, nobody can tell me, but maybe you or somebody else here knows the difference between the super accurate and the normal 9F86 movement. Well, the one with the star on it that they say is within 5 seconds a year, I think they do have some information on their website about that. I think that they're just pickier about the crystal, and they just take the best of the best, and they take more time and all that. And that the truth be known, that watch right there is operating within that spec, within the 5 seconds a year spec, and that's not one of the ultra accurate ones, right? So Grand Seiko under-promises and over-delivers anyway. If they say it's going to be good to 10 seconds a year, this watch that you're looking at right now on screen is tracking to be within about 2 seconds, maybe 3 seconds for the year. So far, that's how it's tracking. So it's going to be well within even the 5 seconds a year spec, and this one is rated at 10 seconds a year. So that's point one, is you're going to probably get better than what they say you're going to get in most cases. I'm getting a lot better than what they predict on this watch. This watch, too, is within like about a second right now from when I changed it like 5 months ago, when I changed the time when daylight savings time came around, right? It's still within about a second, so that's over 5 months. So this watch is also going to be within, let's say, 2, maybe 3 seconds a year, which is significantly better than they promise, right? So, no, I think it's just a selection of the crystal and a little more care taken for those watches with the star on the dial. That's my take on that. Let's see here. I don't think there are any other significant differences, is what I'm saying. Google Pixel Android phones are very good, but most other Androids stop getting software updates after a year. But the other problem is I hear a lot of people commenting on this on all the Android phones is after about 6 months, they start slowing down and they just aren't performing that good, even if they have the most recent software. They have like digital rot or something going on. And there's just all kinds of problems with them. It's just I mean, Steve Jobs famously said they're a bag of hurt, right, years ago, and he was right. I mean, it's just, they're just a bag of hurt. If people like to tinker and like a problematic watch, like, I mean, a phone, like if you want to buy a Patek Philippe or Vacheron or some, high-end or like a Ferrari car, right? I mean, you be ready to tinker, be ready to have it go to the mechanic periodically with issues that cost a lot of money. Be ready for those kinds of things. Be ready for problems, right? So if you like problems, buy a Ferrari, buy one of these high-end Swiss watches, just about any of them. You're going to be in the same boat. And there you go. Buy a Mercedes if you want trouble. If you want to, have to bring it in and get it serviced and spend a lot of money, buy a BMW, something like that. Buy a Volvo, buy a Saab, any of those, right? If you want something that's trouble-free, buy the Lexus, right? Buy a Grand Seiko like this and just wear it. And somebody said in one of the forums, well, Grand Seiko recommends that when you replace the battery in the 9F, that you also replace the seals. And they said that the ADs don't do that. So you have to send it to Grand Seiko, right? And I'm like, first of all, Grand Seiko recommends, I think they still recommend that I service this watch every 3 years. Something like that. 3 years, 5 years, something like that, right? That's what they recommend. There's no way I'm going to have this watch serviced, right? That ain't happening, right? And I'm not going to send that watch back to Grand Seiko to have the battery replaced, right? I'm either going to replace it myself or I'll have Steve do it over at Little Treasury Jewelers, and I'm not going to worry about it. Okay? That's how that's going to work. And I would swim with the watch, too. I would not be worried about swimming with the watch. I think people fret over a lot of things on these things unnecessarily. I mean, it's not like I don't have extra watches, right? If I were swimming with that one and some H2O got in it or something, yeah, I would send it and get it serviced, get it fixed, whatever needed to be done, because that's kind of my fault, right? And I would do that. But I've never had that problem in 40 years of wearing high-quality, waterproof watches, mainly Rolexes, right? For the vast majority of that 40 years, it was Rolexes, a lot of GMT Masters, a lot of Submariners, several day-dates. I took them in the water. I took them in the hot tub. I've heard people say you can't take them in the hot tub. They can't handle the hot water. The hot water will hurt the seals. The chlorine will hurt the seals and all this stuff, right? I never even gave it a second thought. We did not take our watches off. We were out in salt water, out in the ocean, out in any kind of conditions. We didn't take it off, and we didn't immediately go and rinse it in fresh water, like people say. Oh, you got to rinse the salt water off and all this stuff. We were partying. We were having a good time. The last thing we were thinking about was rinsing off our watches, right? Maybe at some point, the next day or that night or or something. Let me know in the chat, folks. What do you all think about all this nonsense? Okay, do you all just wear your watches and use them and not worry about it, or do you take all these precautions that people talk about? All these precautions. I didn't take any of those precautions. So finishing is better than Rolex, except for the bracelets. They are close. I'll tell you, this bracelet's fantastic. It is absolutely freaking stunning. Look at it there. I mean, it is absolutely stunning. And I'll tell you what I was noticing the other day is I was noticing how well this watch really has held up. Now, the clasp, which is stainless steel, has a lot of little scratches on it. Not so little. I mean, it has scratches on it, period. But the rest of the watch has held up really well, considering I beat it around all the time. I mean, I don't baby this watch at all. And the other day, I really knocked it. I was out at the J-Bar W Ranch, and I was going up some metal stairs on the bleachers there, and I was trying to shoot a short little video clip, and a relatively large woman bumped into me, you know, and I kind of fell against a railing, right? And the watch, I heard it. I heard that metal like ting, like you know how you hear that? You hear the connection, the impact. And I was like, oh my God, okay, what have I done now? So I didn't even bother to check it, right? But when I got home, I looked it over, you know, pretty good, and I didn't see any damage at all on it. I mean, and that's the second or third time I've dinged this thing. I dinged it when I was shooting video at the Great Frederick Fair last year, about a year ago now. I was reaching through the metal. They had metal fencing, or whatever you want to call it, that for the cattle, to keep the cattle in for the cattle auction. And I was shooting video clips at the cattle auction, and I was reaching between, these things were about 8 or 10 inches apart, and I was reaching the video camera between to shoot the video clips, you know, so that I didn't get the, you know, the poles in the video shots. And I kept doing this at different positions and moving around, and I was trying to be careful, but sometimes I would bang the watch, you know, against these metal, you know, horizontal pipes of the fence. And I did it several times that night. Ding, you know. I'm like, oh, shoot. I didn't mean to do that, right? And I could have taken the watch off and put it in my pocket or whatever, you know, but no, I don't do that. I just don't do that. And it held up. I mean, it was fine at the end of the day. So dodged bullets there, I guess. Okay, somebody got rid of their BMW. Smiles all around on that one. I use without worries. I rinse in the pool, shower, or at home when I arrive after the trip. Could be more than 1 week after. Carlos in the house, just using his watches. That's right. David says he does much the same. Okay, so what else we're going to talk about in the pregame show? Are we still in the pregame show? Yeah, we're almost there. It's almost 5 o'clock, folks. It's almost time for the official show to start. So there you go. We're going to recap a few of the things we talked about, and we're going to get right into it here. And it is coming up on 5 o'clock, straight up. There you go. So here's the deal. Today, Apple had their event. They talked about the Apple Watch, for those of you that are just getting here. And the Apple Watch is pretty cool, the new Apple Watch, better battery life. And one big change is the time stays on all the time, okay? Instead of you having to flip your wrist up and it coming on, like see how it went out just there, right? And it only stays on for like 15 seconds and it'll go out. All right, so the new one is on all the time. Now, the question I have is how bright is it? Okay, because they showed it, and it clearly, the on all the time is not as bright as if you touch it. if you touch it to wake it up, or if you turn your wrist, it goes from not so bright to brighter, right? So that's the question is it bright enough, the on all the time, is it bright enough to keep you happy, right? It probably is bright enough for indoor use, but outdoor, my guess is it might be kind of washed out, because this one is kind of washed out outside. The newer ones are brighter. This is the Series 1. So that's the question. I probably would not buy one unless I actually checked it and went outside with it. You know, got the guy at the Apple store to let me take it outside in the sunlight and see what it's like outside, readability. Other than that, everything seemed really cool about the new Apple Watch. This was the Apple event that happened today. By the way, this is the Link bracelet on my Series 1 Apple Watch, and I love that bracelet. I wore this on and off for about 2 years. I don't really wear it anymore. So there's that. They announced that. They announced the new iPhone. The Pro version with the 3 cameras is really cool. I think if people use their phone as a camera often, I think it would be a good upgrade. I don't often use my phone as a camera. I use real cameras, right? In my opinion, these cell phone cameras aren't anywhere near as good as a Pro camera. People say, oh yeah, they're just as good now. You don't have to have a real camera anymore, blah, blah, blah. I think that's malarkey. These cannot do what my Pro cameras can do. Not yet. So the sensor's just tiny on them. Just can't do it. But anyway, they show these pictures that these pros took with it and all that under ideal circumstances and all this, and, you know, with all their computational photography and all this stuff. But no, it's not going to replace a Pro camera, not yet. But anyway, big upgrade for sure. Big upgrade. This is the iPhone 10 here. And I'm probably going to stick with this for another year because it's working fine for me. But again, if you're using the cameras on your phone often, I think the new one is a pretty big upgrade. Okay, so that's the latest news. Again, we had some stupid comments. The stupid comment for this show is the one where the guy was saying that if Grand Seikos are so great, why don't they fake them? Why aren't there a lot of fake Grand Seikos around, whereas there are a lot of fake Rolexes around, right? And one of the criteria for a stupid question is if the answer is obvious, then it's probably a stupid question, right? And I think the answer to this one is pretty obvious. A, there's a huge demand for Rolexes. Everybody knows what a Rolex is, so there's a big demand. So if you do a knockoff Rolex, you can easily sell it because a lot of people want Rolexes, right? So there's a market for it, right? So A, that's a reason why they would fake a Rolex, right? There's a huge market for it. The second reason, and maybe not as obvious reason, is there is a lot of handwork that goes into making this watch. A lot of watchmaker hand work. Now there's machine work that goes into it as well, but there's also a lot of hand work, and making the spring drive is not an easy thing to do. Okay, other companies have tried to make similar movements and it is not easy to do. It wasn't easy for Seiko to do it. It took them like 20 years or something to get it down, right? So I think it's probably a little bit difficult for them to make the spring drive. Maybe even difficult for them to make a 9F because there's a lot of special things that go into the 9F movement as well. It's not your ordinary quartz movement, okay? So these things might not be so easy for them to fake, and that in conjunction with the fact that there's a limited market because most people don't even know what a Grand Seiko is. Why on earth would you fake a Grand Seiko when you can easily fake a Rolex because it's basically a machine-made watch? You can fake it, and some of the clones out there are pretty good, right? So you're going to take the easy path, and you're going to fake something that has a big market. So that qualified as a stupid question because the answer is pretty obvious, I think. Let's see here. Jaden, really what? Batman and Batgirl are still going for around 15 and 16. Okay, so there's also a lot of talk about steel Rolex prices getting soft in some markets. We're going to talk about that. Let's see here. Bitcoin under 10,000. Yeah, Bitcoin might go down to 7,000. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. but there are some people. There's a live look at the Bitcoin right now. It's just over 10,000 right now, 10,039. I think it's possible that Bitcoin will take another big dip down to around the $7,000 range. I think that's possible before it takes off. And I don't, and it's possible it won't take off significantly until after the halving. The next halving is in May of next year, May of 2020, the Bitcoin halving, where the block reward is cut in half. I think it'll be down to 6.25 for each block, 6.25 Bitcoin. So traditionally, after the halving is when we have a big run-up. Okay, so the last halving was 2016, and we had that big run-up in 2017, where it topped out at like $20,000. So traditionally, that's what happens. It happens, after the halving, like maybe even up to a year after the halving, is when the big run-up happens. So we could go pretty much sideways for quite a while here until, late next year. We could be going sideways. But this is all speculation. Who knows? Nobody really knows. I don't really care because I'm holding until 2028 anyway. The rest of my Bitcoin, I'm holding. I'm not selling anything until 2028. I've sold all I'm going to sell, and I'm playing with the house money now anyway, so that's all good. Let's see here. Let's see. Batman and Batgirl going for around 15 and 16. I think you might be hard pressed to get that kind of money right now. The market is softening, so if you're sitting on some of that Rolex steel, it might be a good idea to bail out, to get out while the getting is good, because I think the market is starting to get soft. And once people realize that the market is getting soft, and once a lot of these speculators start panicking and start trying to sell these pieces, you could see quite an adjustment. I'm not going to say a crash, but you could see quite an adjustment to where these watches will be routinely selling for below list price, which is what it should be. A used Rolex, which is what these gray market watches are, right, should be selling for 10 to 20% below AD list. That's what the market should be. So it's overinflated and has been for quite a while. So I can see that it could very possibly go back to where it should be. You could use the iPhone 10 for another 3 years, no problem. I probably could, but I'll probably next year buy a new one probably next year. Might be my guess. But if it's still working great, I might keep rolling with it as long as the battery's holding up good and all that. Even Milgauss is trading above MSRP, and you can get that at an AD. Again, a lot of these asking prices does not mean that they're actually selling them for that price. And it also doesn't mean that John Q. Public can get that kind of price. Just because a dealer can get a certain price doesn't mean that the average Joe can get that price. Let's see. Many people will wait for 2020 to upgrade iPhone because of the rumored new form factor and 5G. Yeah, that's a good point. 5G, I think 5G is going to be kind of problematic. I think it's going to be a long time before we see a real benefit from 5G. The areas where they've rolled it out, it's very high frequency, so it has a lot of bandwidth. But the problem with a very high frequency is it won't go through anything. You need to have line of sight. It has very limited range. So they're going to have a lot of repeaters, right, to cover an area. So it's good. I mean, any advancement is good stuff. But I think it's going to take quite a while for 5G to become a real thing. So having a 5G phone, I think, is not going to really help you that much for probably 5 or 10 years would be my guess. Because it took a long time for them to roll out LTE, if you recall. Same issue. Let's see. Do you think interest rates will go down further by year end? If the trade war continues and all that, they might. And we'll talk about the trade war too. I want to talk about that because I think we should go to war on that. There are Batmans on eBay not selling for $13K. Interesting. Well, I would certainly not buy a Batman. I would certainly buy the Batgirl. I mean, I would want the newer movement, and I would want the Jubilee bracelet. People are like, oh, the Jubilee bracelet is ugly and all that. I think it looks 10 times nicer. And I think the lugs don't look as bulbous on the Batgirl. I don't know. Did they change the case between the Batman and the Batgirl? I've heard people say they did, and I've heard people say they didn't. And I've heard people say it's just an optical illusion because the Jubilee bracelet makes the lugs look trimmer. Whatever the reason, I think it looks 10 times better with the Jubilee bracelet. And I think it's also a lot more comfortable. I had GMTs back in the day with Jubilees, and they were much more comfortable than with the Oyster, and I'm sure it's the same today. So it's not even a close call, I would go for the Batgirl. Not even close. And by the way, the Dogman did a review on the Yachtmaster with the blue dial. I guess he got one. Okay, he did a review. And he measured it, 40 mils by whatever, And then he didn't measure the thickness. I'm like, oh my God. One of the coolest things about that watch is the thickness. Now, can you guys let me know in the chat? Can anybody confirm in the chat? Is that watch, that Yachtmaster, is it 11.7 mils thick? That's what I've heard. And also let me know in the chat what the Batgirl, how thick the Batgirl is. And don't speculate, don't guess. Let us know in the chat if you actually know the numbers. And the sub. And I'd like to know a sub without the date, just a sub, and a Submariner date. I'd like to know the thickness of those, the thickness of the Batgirl. The Pepsi GMT would be the same thickness, I'm sure. And the Yachtmaster, like the Dogman has. Blue is the best color. Absolutely. That's the one I would get. I've recommended it many times here on the channel. Howdy, folks. Anyone going to the big watch event at Little Treasury next month? It's next month? Oh, yeah, we're in September. Yeah, we're in September. Here's the thing. I will probably go, but if it's on the same day as the Rockville Car Show, which it was last year, I didn't go to the Rockville Car Show because I wanted to go to Steve's event. But if it's the same day as the Rockville Car Show, I might go to the car show this time. That is a fantastic car show. I love it. I've gone every year for forever. And last year I missed it because Steve was on the same date. What is the date? Put in the chat if you know the date of Steve's event. I think the 21st or something is the Rockville Car Show. It's probably going to be the same date again, which would be a problem for me. I don't know. I'll have to think about it. Yachtmaster is amazing. Yes, Blue Coast best. Got that. Woods, if it were closer than 7 miles from where I live. There you go. I like the Yachtmaster on gray. The gray is nice too. I'd have to see them both in person to really make a decision. Ceramic no date sub is 12.5 millimeters thick. Okay, cheat down. So we got one stat in here. Little Treasury Show is Friday and Saturday, 2 days. Okay, what dates? What dates? And usually the wardrobing event and all that is on the Saturday. From what I recall. 18 to 19 October? 18th to 19th? Huh, okay. Let me pull up my calendar here. If enough of the Wrench Gang are going, I'll probably go and miss the car show again. If there are people going, but if there aren't that many people going, I probably won't. So the 19th, Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the exact same day as the Rockville Car Show. Yeah. So we will see. We will see. We will see. I will decide based on how many of the wrench gang are going to be there. That's how I'll make my decision on that. And if Carlos comes up, I'll definitely go. Okay. 11.6 on my Yachtmaster. Wow. So 11.7 is the stat that I've heard. So that's correct. I mean, that to me, that's a huge advantage. To me, that right there, that stat right there, makes the Yachtmaster a fantastic one-watch solution. A fantastic one-watch solution. Enduro is going to be the 17th, 18th, and 19th, and 20th. Okay. Ceramic date sub is 12.5 thick. So it's the same as no date? I would think that the one with the date would be a little bit thicker just because of the date wheel, but maybe they just use the same case because they're lazy. It seems like to me back in the day the no date was thinner, but maybe they're just using the same case these days just to be, just because they're a little bit lazy on that. Okay. But see, that would be a huge advantage for the Yachtmaster. It's significantly thinner, and that would make it, in my opinion, that plus the fact that it doesn't have the super case. I mean, the case is gorgeous on the Yachtmaster. That would make it. What would really be cool is a Yachtmaster with a Jubilee. I mean, how freaking cool would that be? I wonder how hard it would be to get a Jubilee to fit properly on that watch. The end link situation and all that kind of stuff. Yachtmaster is the best fit from a modern Rolex on save for a Jubilee. Yeah, exactly. Paul Thorpe's watch show scheduled for the 19th also in Brighton. Okay. Best fit on me, I mean, okay. Same dates for me, okay. So David, Williams, and Durr, you're both going to be in town for several days? Is that what I'm seeing here? And I'll tell you the other thing that would ensure that I would be there is if he gets Christina Denny to host again. I was the reason why she was there last year, was I told him that he needed her there, and I set it up. And you guys, what you guys need to do is you need to rattle Steve's cage and ask him if Christina Denny is going to be there. And say that you're thinking about coming, but, if she's not there, you're not so sure, right? Let's lobby. I think Christina did a fantastic job last year. I think she added a lot of class to the operation, and I think she did a great job, kind of emceeing and kind of helping out. And she said, I was at her wedding, and she said she would do it again if Steve invites her. So she's willing to do it. He's got to invite her. Carlos says not going, but I was close on going early November, as close friend has been assigned to duty in Washington, D.C. For sure will be around next year, maybe March. Early November, okay. Well, why don't you come for Steve's thing and stay? You can even stay here at my place at the compound. I got a guest suite here for you, and you can just hang out and enjoy. It's a beautiful time of the year to be here. The leaves are all changing. It's absolutely gorgeous here. I'm right near Camp David, right here at the Catoctin Mountain. It's beautiful right in that time of the year. It's gorgeous. Let's see here. That's right at the end, though. That's where we're getting the end of the fall colors. So you're right there at the end of it. Okay, so they're coming in Thursday and flying back on Sunday. Yes, that's the plan for now. I have to take the red eye from the West Coast 17th, arrive early on the 18th. If Christina Denny is going to be there, I'm telling her to get divorced and run away with me. There you go. It might, hey, sometimes you get a second chance in life, right? Sometimes you get a second chance. There you go. But step one is to let Steve know that you're thinking about coming, and just say, but you wanted to confirm that Christina's going to be there. There you go. And this time, since he's got the whole studio set up there, this time, and we tried to do a live stream last time, but it was kind of like iffy. This time, there's going to be a high quality live stream from there. I can tell you that. If I'm there, I can tell you that's going to happen. Let's see. Thank you, but I will be in California in early November. Too much travel. There you go. Carlos is getting around. All right. So what? Oh, China. Before I forget, I want to talk about China. Let's see. I'm going to Little Treasury Show, and then the following weekend, I'm going to Watch Time in New York. Okay, there you go. All right. So here's the deal. China. When we went to war, real war in World War II, the United States, okay, folks stepped up to the challenge, and there were sacrifices, folks. People made sacrifices. People died, okay? There were legitimate sacrifices. Entire families made sacrifices. Rosie the Riveter, right? All these women were building airplanes. I think that we should be willing to tighten our belts. People say, well, the prices of things that we buy are going to go up, with this trade war and all this stuff. We need these cheap items from China, we need to be able to buy them. It's going to hurt the consumer, all this stuff, right? Well, I say the consumer should suck it up and tighten their belt and start buying high-quality items made in these United States. This shirt I have on was made in the United States, right? We're capable of doing it. Back in the day, a lot of things were made in the United States. I think we're capable of doing it again. And I think it would be a good thing to kneecap those Chi-Coms, right? And not give them a bunch of money. And then that, in conjunction with Bitcoin taking off and taking away the financial purse strings, taking those financial purse strings away from the government, and us taking back control of our finances and away from the banks and so on and so forth, I think in 10 years' time, we could really turn things around. We would have a battle on our hands, and it would be like World War II, right? Fought in a different way. But I think that it could result in some really good things. And I think people could start buying fewer items, but buying quality items. I don't buy anything at Walmart. It's just about nothing that I want from Walmart, right? And just about everything in there is made in China. I have no need for it. And I think we could pass on a lot of that cheap junk. I've said this before on the channel. I got a friend that has a beautiful home down in Bethesda. Beautiful home. 4-car garage, nice home, slate roof, nice place, right? He's got an acre down there in Bethesda. It's probably a $15 million house nowadays. It's just insane, the prices down there. But anyway, half of his garage is full of junk that they've bought over the years at places like Walmart. And he's got 2 expensive cars inside the garage, and then he's got 2 more garage spaces that are full of junk, and he's got 2 other cars that are their daily drivers that sit outside. They're not even in the garage, right? Because there's no room, because there's a bunch of junk in there that they bought that's made in China. I say we don't need that junk. And I say you'd have a lot less stuff at yard sales, stuff that's filling up people's garages that they don't use, if we weren't buying that junk from China. What do you guys think? Let me know what you think. Is that crazy talk? This is Crazy Talk Part 6. So there you go. And David Williams says, suck it up. Well said. I wonder if the whole American house built on buying stuff with money we don't have will collapse soon. And again, that could all be part of this transition where we could we could move towards saving and investing and consuming less. And when we do buy something of quality that's made here locally. Even food, try to buy stuff that's grown locally. I think it could really be. I think the result could be pretty cool. Could be pretty interesting. Let's see here. Whenever I hear talk of MFG manufacturing back to the U.S., how about the manufacturing pollution problem? You'd prefer to wear a mask all day? Not really, because, I mean, they're polluting. Trust me, they're polluting when they're making it in China, and they're even polluting more. And that stuff, what goes around comes around, right? No, I think they would do a better job of managing that sort of thing here. And I think that, again, if you're buying fewer items, you don't have to make as many items. And if you're buying stuff that's well made, it's going to last a lot longer. So it's going to have a longer service life. And you're not going to have this constant turnover, this throwaway society. In many cases, when you're throwing something away, there is no away. There is nowhere for that thing to go, right? It ends up on a barge somewhere, or it ends up, somebody throws it in the ocean, or God knows where that stuff ends up, right? It's much better if we just buy less in the first place and consume less in the first place and buy quality stuff that lasts. Don't buy these trendy fashions that go out of style and then you have to get rid of all your clothes. Don't buy these suits, these sport coats that are real short. You know the real short sport coats everybody's wearing now? That's the thing. Trust me, 5 years from now, those aren't going to be in fashion. Buy the conservative stuff that you can wear now, you can wear 10 years ago, you can wear 10 years from now. This shirt I have on right now is a perfect example. You could wear this shirt today. I could have worn it, and I did wear it 20 years ago, and you could wear it 20 years from now. It doesn't make any difference. It's always going to be fine, right? So buy stuff that'll last, and then you don't have to do as much manufacturing anywhere. Hey, what do you think about that? I only buy Planters, dry roasted peanuts at Walmart when I visit. I buy my peanuts in the shell from Costco, and they are grown in Virginia. You got to be careful about peanuts that are grown in like Mexico or places like that. There's problems with things in the dirt and all that. What do you call it? Well, anyway, you guys know what I'm talking about. I just can't think of the word. What's that stuff that, fungus? Yeah, fungus. That's the word I'm thinking about. You got to be careful about that. Okay. So let's see here. Atlanta once a year. Okay, Craig, is post-birth abortion a good or a bad thing? Post-birth abortion? Oh my goodness. I don't get me started on people's life choices and all that kind of stuff. We could go down a rabbit hole that we could never climb out of. You'll get me started on tattoos and nose rings and all kinds of stupid decisions that people make. Yeah, no, we'll table that for another day. And Roger, I guess this is a super chat. I don't know what this is. This is kind of funny. I haven't seen one this color for a while, but I'm tired of people complaining about Rolex and how difficult steel watches are to obtain. Then why not move along? Tell you why, because nothing retains value like Rolex. What's your take? Well, here's the thing. I mean, it's supply and demand. I mean, Rolex has done a fantastic job marketing and creating this significant demand. They've got some beautiful watches. The Batgirl is beautiful. The Pepsi is beautiful. We already talked about the Yachtmaster. I'm not a big fan of the Super Case. I think that was a fail, but a lot of people give them a pass on that, and they'll buy it anyway. They have done a stellar job marketing. And I love Rolex watches. I wore them for 40 years. I think the Date 8 is gorgeous. I have talked in other videos why I'm wearing Grand Seiko right now. I mean, I think this is a step up from a sub. I like this case design much better than the sub. I don't like the Super Case. I like this size for my old tired eyes. It's a lot easier for me to read this watch. I think it looks okay on my 7.5. I have a 7.5, 7.25 to about a 7.5 wrist, depending on the humidity and the heat. 7.25 is, you know, in the wintertime, 7.5 in the summertime, and anywhere in between, depending on the heat. So for me, I think this size is great. I love the super accuracy of the spring drive. I like the titanium, the comfort that this titanium gives me on wrist. I like the look of the watch. So that's why I moved away from Rolex. And I like this watch here for dress purposes because it's only 12 mils thick and it's 39 mils in size. And so for dress purposes, I can wear that. This one, not so much. This is too big for me to wear under a shirt cuff comfortably. So I have my reasons for buying these two Grand Seiko watches that I own right now. But if I was going to buy one watch all-around solution, I would definitely buy either a Yachtmaster with the blue dial probably, or I would buy a Date 8. One of those two. And they're fantastic watches. And as far as retaining value, I mean, a lot of people seem very concerned with their watches holding value. And I think that that's a red flag. That should cause pause. If somebody is worried about the value of their watch retaining value, that tells me they probably shouldn't have purchased it in the first place. It tells me that they're stretching to buy something that they really shouldn't buy. They're putting too much of their money in an asset, something they think is an asset, that is really not a good investment. A watch, generally speaking, I don't care what watch you buy, is generally speaking not a good investment. And so they're looking at these watches as investments. They even use the term investments a lot of times. And I think that is ill-advised. I think a watch should be purchased to be worn, used, and enjoyed, and not as an asset, a store of value. If you want to park your money somewhere as a store of value, I would park it in gold. I would park it in silver. I'd even park it in Bitcoin before I would park it in a steel Rolex. That's my thing. And I would never pay over retail. I would just wait. I just wait it out because I think the market is going to come back down to earth. And I think you're going to be able to buy these watches for less than retail once the market corrects. So let's see here. Keep heavy manufacturing in the already dumpy areas like Detroit. There you go. I love GS, and it's better in almost every way except value retention. It's the only... See, they're not that bad at value retention either. Let's cut to this one. Here's the thing. If you bought... I'll give you an example, okay? I bought a Snowflake, and I paid $5,000 for it, and I sold it for $4,600. Okay, so I lost $400, right? That's not bad. And so if you buy these watches right, like this watch right here, you can probably, if you shop, you can probably buy one for around $5,000, the titanium diver, this one, right? And you could probably wear it for a year or two and sell it for, $4,500 or something, right? You're going to lose some money, but you're not going to really lose that much. They're not that bad as far as that goes. But again, I think it's a much better solution to just measure 7 times and cut once. Buy the watch you really want. Don't buy a watch thinking that you might want it and then force yourself into a position where you've got to sell it. Even if you do that with a Rolex, 9 times out of 10, you're going to lose money on the Rolex. Okay, you may think you're not going to, but you know, if you pay retail for a Rolex, and then a year later you've got to sell it, now all of a sudden you've got to find somebody that you trust that's going to give you all the money. You're going to give them the watch. How's that all going to happen in a safe way? If you consign it to somebody to sell it for you, like Chrono 24, they're going to take their commission, right? So then you got to get even more for it. It's not a slam dunk. These watches are not that liquid, I guess is what I'm saying. Not that easy to sell. Easier said than done, okay, is what I say. Okay, let's see here. People love to complain. That's for sure. Yes, because it's easier than getting one. Haha, love both. I have both. Okay, why are people so obsessed with value retention? Good. Oh, we just talked about it. If you like a watch and will wear it, buy what you love. I would think so. We also like Rolex for its quality, and brand recognition and sense of achievement is a factor too, I admit. There you go. Absolutely. You feel good wearing a Rolex. I mean, I wore them for 40 years. Absolutely. But Carlos, if you ever get a Grand Seiko, you'll be like, oh my gosh. It's just like if people go from an Android phone to an iPhone, it's like, oh my gosh, why did I wait so long? It's the same thing. Once you go to one of these Grand Seikos, it's hard to go back. It really is. This thing, I just know when I look at it that the time is like spot on. I don't even have to think about it, right? I just know it's correct. And that's just a good feeling. And it's so comfortable on wrist. And I think it's stunning looking, too. I think the bracelet is more attractive, much more attractive than an oyster bracelet. I think it's stunning. And I think it's every bit as attractive as a Jubilee even. I think it's like kind of in between an oyster and a Jubilee. It's got a little bit of extra bling to it. But it's got that comfort. See, the flexibility. This is the other thing that a lot of misinformation out there, and we've talked about this on other shows. People complain about the fact that this uses the pen and collar system to hold the links in, the links that you can take out. The beauty of the pen and collar system is the amount of flexibility it gives that bracelet and less wear and tear. Because if you've got a screw going through that center link and then the screw goes into the outer link, the screw becomes fixed in position. It will not rotate, right? It's fixed in position with relation to the inner and outer links, right? The center link then pivots on that screw, which is fixed in place, right? With this, the whole pin, the entire pin can freewheel, can rotate. So as the bracelet flexes, there's less wear and tear because of that freewheeling, right? So it's actually a better design than having the screw. Not to mention the fact that the screws can back out on a Rolex. And if you're not careful, you could lose that screw and you could lose the whole watch, especially if you're on a boat or something, right? And it happens at just the wrong time. Your watch could be at the bottom of the creek, bottom of the ocean, wherever you may be. And so there's a huge advantage to the pen and collar system. And I'm not talking about a straight pin system where the pin goes in and pushes into the other side and then that pin does not rotate. It's got to be the pin and collar system. That allows that pin to rotate. So there's a lot of misinformation out there that people think that the pin and collar system is a cheaper, lower quality way to do it. It's really the better way to do it. Okay? And I wish that watch there had it. That watch, but the way you did on this watch is they have 2 little tiny screws that go in, and then they've got the pin in the middle that does float, so they still have the floating pin, but they got a screw on either side that hold it in place, so you got 2 screws that can back themselves out, right? I would much rather that watch have the pin and collar system on it. So there you go. Rolex braces are unbeatable. like I say, they're pretty good, but there are a lot of advantages to this bracelet over the Rolex. So this, I think this does trump the Rolex bracelet. And this extension mechanism here that this has is far superior to the Rolex. Because all I have to do is lift this, and bam, I just extended this out. And then I can just, it's a one-way ratchet. I can click it in one click at a time and get it exactly what I want. I mean, literally in an instant like that, I can just adjust the bracelet a little bit if I go out in the humidity or something like that. The Rolex is not that easy to adjust, okay, on wrist like that. So there's a lot of advantages to this watch, but you have to wear it and use it on a daily basis. The more I wear and use this watch, the more respect I have for it. Now it's been over a year now, and I'm like amazed every day by how well it serves on a daily basis and does what it's supposed to do. Okay, Roger says, agree on never paying over retail. We're going to wrap this up pretty soon because I'm getting hungry. And yes, steel sport models are not an investment. Precious metals are far better. Okay. And again, I wouldn't invest in 18 karat gold Rolexes either. And those you want to buy as inexpensively as you can on the used market, right? And then just enjoy them. If you have more than 10K in watches and you don't care at all about value retention, I'd lean toward that being foolish. If you have more than 10K in watches and you don't care at all about value retention, I'd lean toward. Well, here's the thing. If you've got that amount of money invested in watches, I shouldn't use the term invested, spent on watches, then if you're a multimillionaire, it doesn't matter. It's all relative, right? My rule of thumb is if you're buying a watch, you should spend about 1 week's wages, 1 week's earnings, if you will, on that watch. So let's say you make $2,000 a week. Okay, you should spend $2,000 on a watch. That's a good rule of thumb. All right? If you make $10,000 a week, buy yourself a $10,000 steel Rolex, right? That's the way it should be. If you're earning $45,000 a year, you shouldn't be buying a Rolex, any Rolex. It's not in your price range. All right? And I think a lot of people out there are buying more watch than their income would suggest they should be buying. This is a luxury item. This is you're up near the top of the line here. You should have a top of the line income to justify that. Otherwise, I think you're making a bad financial decision. Let's see here. Is a hobby watch is long-term and value retention is part of the package? And again, if you're worried about value retention, you're probably buying more watch than you should be buying. You should be investing that money instead. You should have that money working for you in a legitimate investment. Part of why I love a 9F quartz is the value. Amazing build, amazing accuracy. Well, hell yeah. And a good price, yep. I'm the opposite. I got an iPhone and am regretting leaving the Android platform. Oh, uh-oh. Wow, that's unusual. That's unusual. Okay. G-Town, California was hidden. What did you do to get hidden, G-Town? Come on now. Come on, let's behave, people. How's it going? Okay. You guys driving? Okay. I prefer loose bracelets, much more comfortable. Okay, there you go. I have that bracelet too, Craig. Rolex isn't that easy, but it's a much sleeker design. Well, the clasp is not as bulbous, this part of the clasp, but it's longer. So it's trade-offs, right? The Easy Link is real long, and so that can kind of be an issue too. So for me, the comfort of this bracelet, coupled with the ease of adjustment, this would trump the Rolex, definitely. I mean, it's not even a close call. And the fact that this is titanium, not the clasp, you understand, that's stainless steel, but the rest is titanium, makes this much more comfortable on wrist. I mean, it's just not even a dogfight. This is just, and the fact that it's all rounded, nice and smooth and nicely polished and all that, mean, you just have to wear this to know. You really would not know unless you wore this for a period of time what I'm talking about. It's just freaking amazing. Craig, how good is the bracelet on a snowflake? It's fantastic, but it doesn't have micro adjustments. So if that doesn't bother you, the fact that it doesn't have micro adjustments, then I would say go for it. But I would try one on and go to an AD or somebody that will let you wear it for a period of time in their showroom and just make sure that you really like everything about it. But yeah, I had them and it was fantastically comfortable, but no micro adjustments. So that means that for me, twice a year, I would have to remove a half link and put it back in, and I just didn't want to go through that hassle. So that's one of the reasons why I sold it, why I sold the snowflake. That's why they want resale value. They can't afford it in the first place. Good point. Good point. Which means they're really screwing themselves up financially by tying up money in something instead of investing it. The YouTuber Crappy Luxury says he makes $0 per year. However, he wants to buy a Rolex, Oyster Perpetual, or Omega Globemaster this year. What advice would you give him? There you go. Good question. I think that's a whole nother show. I've once heard Archie say 1/4 of your income is a good ratio for the cost of a Rolex. Not sure that is a good idea. 1/4 of your income. Are you kidding me? Oh my goodness. I got a thing here. Tomorrow afternoon. Okay. Thought I got a message here, but I didn't. Okay. So, all right, I think we're going to wrap this puppy up. I made a snide remark about not buying a used BMW. Okay. Yeah, BMWs are unless you are mechanically inclined and like to work on fixing things, I would go with a Toyota instead or a Lexus. You can have anything, but you cannot have everything. I mean, you cannot make excess and everything, but I understand very limited. Yeah, but with a Rolex, Carlos, I mean, you should have a pretty good income to be buying a Rolex. It's not really a good move for somebody with a average income even. Average income in Maryland, where I am right now, this happens to be the wealthiest state in these United States of America. The average family income is, I think, $74,000 a year. That's the highest in the country. If you had an average income of 70 some odd $1,000 a year for your family, I don't think you should be buying a Rolex. It should not be on your radar screen. You should just invest that money instead. I think you should be making, more like $200,000 a year. That would be Rolex territory, in my opinion. This is my opinion. Let's see. I was banned for months on the Clive Watch Wrangler channel for making snide remarks about Grand Seiko. Okay. Craig, could you take a look at the GS SBGX231? Okay, we'll do this and then we're going to wrap this puppy up. SBGX231. Let's see what we got here. Oh, it looks like it's an anti-magnetic. Here's one at Govberg Watches. Let's see if this is still here. 38 mils. Waiting for their website to load. If it loads, I will show you. It's taking forever here. Here we go. Give me a minute here for this to come up. See if it's still on their site. Okay. Oh, it says out of stock now. Okay, so anyway, I guess that's the watch. I mean, I would have to see one in person. You know, most of these pictures that you see on these websites, like that's not even like a real picture, right? I'm not super enamored with this case. I kind of like the case design on my 9F more than that, but I'd have to see it in person really to make a final decision. Uh, you know, it's got a similar bracelet to that watch, but the case design on my watch, I think I definitely prefer. But I'd have to look. I mean, this isn't terrible. It's not terrible. And I wonder if it has a screw down crown. That would be a deal killer if it doesn't have a screw down crown. I would confirm that it has a screw down crown. But I think you look at the watch, hopefully you can look at it in person somewhere and see. I just really like the case design of that watch. I just, and I like the crown protectors on it. I just think they nailed it as far as the whole design of that watch. So that's be my opinion there. Okay. I'm banned from the Facebook page, Andrew, in the house. All right, I'm going to wrap this puppy up. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And sorry, it's been a while since I did a show, but it's just a busy time of the year this time of the year. And I'm going to pull up the app here so I can wrap this puppy up, and then I'm going to eat something. I'm hungry. Let's see, it says connection lost. Let me get reconnected here. Hey, make sure you click subscribe. Click that little bell so that you'll get a notification here when we go live. And okay, let's see here. I'm going to say stop.